What's up, everybody? My name is DangerDoug, and today we got Sean's storybook over here, and today we're going to be talking about Sword Art Online. Sean, how are you, my man?
Yeah, man, doing good. I'm well excited. I'm very excited for this one. It's definitely a favorite. Love it.
Dude, that's amazing. One bit of news, guys, before we even get started and stuff, is that Sean is possibly going to be doing a podcast at some point sometime soon.
Yeah, definitely. So it's going to be called Let's Watch. It will be covering most bases, so anime, TV shows, films. I will be starting with anime. I'll probably be starting with this very show, but yeah, so maybe hopefully look out for that.
Dude, absolutely 100%. Yeah, guys, we got his socials down below here and there in the description too, so be sure to also give my man a follow and all of the good stuff. So as long as you guys are up for some more anime reviews and all of the good stuff and hearing about some of the news that's going on in the community, definitely give him a follow and check him out sometime soon. But yeah, today we're going to be covering Sword Art Online, and we're going to be talking about the first season only. So again, I'm going into this pretty much just with the knowledge only of like season one. So I've not read the manga or like seen any of the other shows or the movies. So again, we're going into this one with just this one. But we brought in a huge expert who has already like gone ahead over here and stuff and checked out some of the other stuff. He's promised not to give me any spoilers, and he's showing off a lot of his merchandise and all of the good stuff. But dude,
uh,
now again,
yes,
guys, we've
yeah.
been friends for a long time, and again, like holy crap, he's really excited to be a part of this, and oh my god, dude.
Yeah, sorry, I'll stop showing off. But it's yeah. So I've just as a bit of background, I've read the first few volumes of Progressive, the series. The first four volumes in preparation for this very thing. So that's the two volumes of Minecraft and the two volumes of Fairy Dance. I'm an avid watcher of the series. I've played all of the games, I believe, including the mobile games like Memory Defrag and Integral Factor.
Nice.
And yeah, I'm hardcore into this show. I love everything about it. It's awesome.
Dude,
It's so
dude.
fun.
I can't think of anybody better to like be a part of this and whatnot. Just because when I mentioned I was doing some anime reviews on YouTube and stuff, and like I think it was you who reached out to me, who was like, "Are you doing one story online? Because if you are, like, please, let's freaking do this together." And I'm like, "Dude, absolutely 100%." But dude, we're finally getting to it. Holy crap, this is gonna be amazing.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. I'm very excited.
Okay. For context, guys, again, going into Sword Art Online Season 1, this anime was an amazing one that was written originally by Reki Kawahara in manga form and light novel, actually, in the series, and which was published, I believe, around 2002 to 2008, but was not turned into an anime render until about 2012. Sean, correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm double checking your dates because it will say in the thing. Um,
I gotcha.
it is so in Japan, 2009 it came out apparently according to this.
Gotcha.
So that's what it says in the book is Japan in 2009. But yeah, cool.
Good stuff. Yeah, for sure. And the anime series spans about 25 episodes, and it's divided mostly up into two parts here and there too, with the first half being part of Sora Online with everything that's going on and there, and then they also go into the secondary kind of world with Alfheim here and there too, all nine and whatnot. Yeah, we'll be talking about those ones in the plot over here as well. But yeah, we're excited. I'm excited for this one. It's gonna be absolutely great, dude.
Yeah, we're gonna rock it because it's an interesting one because despite Sword Art Online being the name of the show, a lot of people are put off by the fact that that's mainly the plot of the first half of the season, and that's when people kind of abandon it as soon as the dude leaves Sword Art Online. That's that part finished. It's like it's going to sound really cliche, but Sword Art Online in this context is it's more of a frame of mind. It's more of like what's going on in the main dude's head, in Kirito's head, and which obviously you'll go into in a second. But like, yeah, that's just how I feel coming away from it. Is Sword Art Online. It's called that because that's what he can't escape. That's in his head. But hey, maybe that's just me reading way too much into everything. But we'll
No,
see.
no, it's all good, dude. No, no worries. And speaking of Kirito, so let's just jump right into this one and start talking about our main characters. And yeah, again for the main characters, again, there's so many characters like in this show, like here and there. Ones that come up for maybe like an episode here and there, or some that show up for a couple of episodes and they go away for a little bit and then they come back for some of the other battle sequences here and there too with the rest of the story. But we're going to be talking about a couple of the main characters first off, and you guessed it, Kirito is our first one and whatnot. He's our main protagonist in here, and yeah, so apparently he's this kid who is a gamer kid who basically was a beta tester here and there too for Sword Art Online before it went online here and there too, and once he's initiated into the game here and there too, he's found out by a lot of his other fellow gamers here and there too to be one of the beta testers. And I think one of his like nicknames here and there too was the Black Swordsman, just because of like all the stuff that's going on with like his usual wear and his weaponry and everything. But yeah, he's known as that, and he is extremely powerful in the game, but he kind of hides that here and there from a lot of his other fellow gamers within the actual game world itself here and there. And the game that they go into is, you guessed it, called Sword Art Online as well. And we'll talk about this in the plot for the most part, but yeah, they're essentially put, they're kind of trapped inside this world here in the two by the game developer Aki Hiko Kayaba, who's kind of like this overlord here and there too. But because he was a beta tester, he had already kind of farmed up a little bit here in the two about his abilities and kind of had an understanding of the game before they really got into it. Sean, what are your thoughts about our hero Kirito or Kirito?
So Kirito is real name Kazuto Kirigaya,
Yes.
and he's your basic shut-in gamer. He starts the show 14 and then ends his first season being 16 because he's trapped for 2 years, which
Yeah.
is intense. And we don't actually get a lot of him as a 14-year-old. We mostly get him being 16. But he is fascinating in that it's not just, oh, he's a shut-in gamer, that's the joke, which is so often the case in many animes. It's more a case of, no, he's a shut-in gamer who's learning to embrace the real world and learning about real human feelings and emotions that he's mainly shut off from in the real world, which we
Hmm.
learn more about when we confront his sister slash cousin, which, will be spoken about later, I suppose. But yeah, no. The whole thing about him is he's learning to love life, really, and he's loving the in game. He loves everything about in the game, to the point where he teaches Asuna to be okay with everything in game,
Sure. Yeah.
but he still needs to embrace real life, and there's a lot of elements of that in the whole thing.
Dude, absolutely 100%. And speaking of Asuna, she's our second character over here with Asuna Yuuki. She I think she's the daughter of was it the CEO or one of the directors of the company that's like in production with SAO and everything else that's going on.
Yeah, so is it Rec Progress? I think it's Rec Progress, unless that's a whole other
No, that
company in the SAO universe.
yeah, that name
But
says sounds familiar. Yeah.
it's definitely one of the directors, because that feeds into, well, we get that information in the second half, and it feeds into the main antagonist of the second half of the season.
Hmm.
But we don't actually find out who her, parents are or anything in the first season, first half of the season rather, other than the fact we find out she uses her real name for her in-game tag, which is kind of almost like a no. It's like, you shouldn't do that, just in case people find you IRL. It's a bit risky, but
Right.
she's definitely a newbie kind of player. She's, one of the first questions she asks is, what do you mean switch in, switch out? And it's like, you
Right.
you've played games before, right? And she's like, yeah, totally. And it's like, no, you haven't. But it's, she's still quite adept at everything she does because she has physical prowess. She's
Hmm.
clearly, got that going for her. And it's like she's got an athletic build because she does a lot of athletics in her real life. So it's like that feeds over into the game, which is an interesting take. Like, I love the fact it does that. It's very interesting. Though the reason she's a badass because she is IRL as opposed to Kirito, which is kind of the other way around. But I suppose that's kind of what makes them brilliant together.
Absolutely, and you're gonna find that even when we get into the plot and everything, that our two main characters here and there with Kirito and Asuna, they do fall in love during this show here and there, and like you were saying here and there with Kirito, is he's trying to discover how to really kind of live and function in the real world and just gain an appreciation with a lot of stuff. Um, you start to see a lot of like big sparks start to happen between the two of them when she like discovers him like under a tree in one of those episodes. I forget exactly which one, but he tells her that even though like she's scolding him like for not like grinding up to defeat this one boss that they're going off to like fight in this one floor that they're in, he kind of like takes a step back and says, hey, you know what, it's the perfect like weather setting in the game right now. Everything is like just fine, and you're not like losing a day here if you just kind of like relax for a bit and just kind of enjoy yourself a little bit. But she takes that and like actually gets some of like the best sleep that she's ever had in her entire life. And it kind of gives you a little thing to where you step back a little bit and say, okay, even though we're trapped in here for yeah like 2 years and stuff, I mean this whole thing happens over the course of, what was it, 2 3 years, that even then you can
Yeah.
kind of form relationships, you can form appreciations of like the stuff that's in game here and there too, and just kind of like develop those connections, which we do see play out throughout the entirety of the show. Let's talk about the second half a little bit with Suguha Kirigaya, Lifa, actually. His sister, well, not really sister, or Kirito's sister, his cousin, actually, or it's revealed a little bit later that she's his cousin. So initially, like, okay, she's living with him in the same household and whatnot, but while Kirito is in SAO and whatnot, he's kind of cut off from the rest of the world and her at the same time. But while that's going on and stuff, she's just kind of doing her own thing at school, working in kendo because that's kind of her main thing for the most part. But when they do get out of SAO here and there too, he discovers that you know, she's actually doing this part of the game here and there too. Well, it's discovered a little bit later, but I mean, she's kind of playing it in secret here and there too, and he doesn't know that like her in-game character, who's this fairy named Lifa, is actually like the main one of the main friends that he makes like early on in the game here and there, who kind of teaches him stuff. But yeah, she's very cute, very shy, very reserved for the most part, and just kind of is doing her own thing. But she develops a almost a love and appreciation for her um cousin, not brother, but cousin here and there too, as they go forward into the game and whatnot. What are your thoughts on Lifa?
So I love Lever. I think Sugai is a very interesting character, and it's a very interesting route they've taken it down because, as already stated, she is Kirito's cousin, and she also is kind of infatuated with Kirito because whatever you want to say about Kirito as a character, all the ladies love him. That seems to be a constant thing. Like no
Well,
matter what season, whatever, it's all the ladies love him. But here's the thing about what they've done with Suga is um she knows it's kind of like a thing where it's like, no, that can't be a thing. You can't be in love with your cousin. And she knows that.
right,
And she's
right.
constantly trying to abandon that so that when Kazuto comes back to the real world, she's like, okay, that's fine. I'm going to abandon that. And then she meets Kirito in game, not realizing it's him, and totally falls head over heels for him. And he's like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
okay, great, like this guy. And then it falls apart because, you know, you have this whole dynamic which she's built up with this, who she thinks is a new guy, and it's just the dude she's been trying to forget about, and she is heartbroken.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really, really interesting because she's in this same situation yet again, where it's just like she needs to forget everything, but it ends up making them stronger as a family unit as opposed to anything else because he sort of confronts her and says, look, we're going to meet up in game, we're going to have a sword fight because that's what we do, and they both let each other win,
Right,
and
right. Yeah, that's
it's a
it was a
brilliant
good moment.
development.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, and they kind of just fall into each other's arms and kind of go, you know what, there's bigger things at play here, let's just be brother and sister like we always were, you know, growing up. That's what our dynamic was, let's keep that. And both of them like, yes, let's do that. And It's so, I don't know, there's something about it which just fills your heart and makes you go, yeah, okay, let's just fight for the day kind of thing. It's so great. And the whole show has those moments all over the place where you just feel your heart welling up and just going, yeah, fight for it. All that.
No, for sure. Yeah, there's so many moments during these shows here and there too where like especially in this one where when you actually do figure out what's going on internally with a lot of the characters and especially the ones in SAO, you kind of do get behind a lot of them and start to root for them after a while as to what they're going off of and what they're doing and stuff. So it's not hard to actually go out and really cheer these characters on. And as far as the rest of our characters go, there's two other ones that I want to cover here and there as part of our main cast. And the first one I want to cover is Akihiko Kayaba. He could be seen as a main antagonist, at least for the first half, to a point, but then things kind of change a little bit here and there as we get into the second half here and there too. But at the same time, in the first episode, he again is our like game developer who's kind of developed this entire world that we are now thrown into, sort of in line with all of the other characters who have logged on. And he tells everybody, hey, guess what? Oh, by the way, for everybody who is logged in over here, you're trapped in here and you got to go through like 100 floors and beat the final boss up at the top of this like huge complex and everything. And oh, by the way, if you die in game, you actually die in real life because the nerve gear that you're wearing in order to actually log into this virtual world will kill you if you actually die in game. So right away he's seen as the kind of like main like bad of the entire series, but things start to change a little bit as we start to figure out exactly like what he's all about and what he's been doing here in the two in this whole entire endeavor. But again, yeah, starts off this main villain, and yeah, it's just absolutely crazy to even think about, and especially so when you consider stories like a more popular Western movie, Ready Player One, where he had the architect behind that game here in there too, and I'm pretty sure that Sword Online came out well before Ready Player One, and the guys from Ready Player One who wrote it actually went over to the Sword Online guys to actually find out a little bit more about the story here in there too, to kind of make sure they didn't plagiarize too much a little bit from the story. What are your thoughts about Kayaba and the world that he's kind of created for our heroes?
So Akihiko Kaiba, also known as Heathcliff, when he's in game,
Yes.
hashtag spoiler alert,
There you go.
is he's a fascinating character because he creates the world. Mainly, you get the impression he creates the world purely because he can. He wants
Yes.
people to live in the world the same way Kirito feels like he's living in the world. He wants people to just, embrace this Aincrad, this, castle in the sky type deal. He wants people to embrace it like it is real life, so he makes it that.
Right.
And his kind of redemption arc comes a lot later on in like near the end of the first season, which is like he gives Kirito what he calls the world seed.
Mm-hmm.
And that basically gives birth to a whole new stream of other like virtual worlds which people can just go into and enjoy. Unlike SAO, they're not trapped in it. They can just go in and enjoy whatever they want. You got places like Gun Gale Online, which we see in season 2,
Mm-hmm.
or we've got obviously Alfheim, which is already there. All these kind of different branches of worlds are created just purely because of his love for the game, his love for that world which exists in his own head. Like he says something along the lines of, in his dreams, he always saw a castle in the sky
Right.
and he always wanted to reach it one day. And that's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what he did. And that's what he set out to do. And that's what he did. And that's what's fascinating about him is he's kind of like, he's almost like a future Kirito, because Kirito just, he wants to hate him so much, but he sees so much of
Right.
himself in him. And it's like, yeah, he can't help it because that's who Kayaba is. He's a gamer. He is not only that, but a developer as well. He is a true creator.
Absolutely, 100%. And you find this out throughout the course of the entirety of the story. And it's one of those things like where you were saying here in the two, when Kayaba gives him the seed and whatnot for a whole new virtual world. When you take a story like this here and there, where everybody's literally informed that they're trapped inside this huge massive like game, and it takes him years, literally years, to get out. You can tell that a lot of times the news and everybody else in the public probably wouldn't take a liking to different like VR games here in the two that actually would put you in this type of scenario. But at the same time, the seed that he gives Kirito actually helps kind of foster like a rebirth here and there of that entire like genre, and basically saying like they're going to be actually like able to kind of have this again here and there too, because like a lot of people here and there would probably want to shut it down after they like see like everything that's happened with all these people and whatnot. Like, how could we ever let this happen? But it's just so cool to even think about. Let's talk about the last character that I want to talk about. So the last person I want to talk about is our real main antagonist, the big bad, and everything that's leading up to this guy and the final battle here and there, if you will, at the very end here and there. And that is Nobuyuki Sugo. Um, this guy is an asshole. I'm just gonna say that right outright. I won't even bother with the censoring and stuff. This guy is an absolute dick, dude. Like, for real. As soon as his character is introduced, when Kirito gets back into the real world after the conclusion of the first half and whatnot, spoiler alert, he goes out to find Asuna, only to find that like her dad's kind of tending to her, but she's still trapped inside like the online realm here and there. But then we find out that this guy over here actually has her trapped inside this online world here in the two, and she's actually being kept inside Alfheim Online here in the two, in like an impossible place above the entirety of the world, above the like world tree, if you will, like inside a cage, all with the intention of basically rewriting all of her thoughts and stuff, erasing memories, and basically trying to make her his woman for the most part and getting her to submit to him. This is all after she has fallen in love with Kirito over the course of the first half of the season, but we find out that this guy is trying to do that, and he's also doing all kinds of different thought experiments with different militaristic implications here and there too. What do you think about this guy? He is terrible. What is your take on this guy?
So he sucks. So who he is basically so Rec Progress also obviously creates Sword Art Online, but they also run Alfheim Online, which we later find out is basically a carbon copy of Sword Art Online, except with more Norse mythos thrown in. And the person who runs it is Suko. He's the one who's in charge of Alfheim Online, because it turns out to be this big cover for, as you say, thought experiments and all this kind of thing. And it's horrible because he's trying to rewrite people's brain functions and all this kind of thing.
Right.
And he is just an evil person, because he straight up says to Kirito, like, you are a child and you can't mess with me.
No,
And
really, he's very
to
forthright about his like his plans and like his thoughts and whatnot. And this is something that a lot of people either had a problem with this character, just because there's like two classes of people I found out in a lot of like review boards. They either like his character as a villain, or they like just hate the way that he's written. I mean, he's somebody that we can all agree on that we love to hate, but a lot of people's like the division between a lot of people that I've seen at least is that one, he is a terrible person that you love to hate, sure, and is like one ultimate villain that you can ever wish for. But then there's another group of people who would say that he's like way too over the top to the point where it gets kind of silly, or it's like, okay, you're just being bad for the sake of being bad or something, or like there's no way like some evil dude would actually do this. I'm not of that class. I actually think that if you're a person who really is like this and you're power hungry and you think that you can actually pull this shit off, you probably would be very forthright about this. And it's like one of those things too where we take like an online world here and there like SAO and whatnot. You take a look at a lot of the trolls that we as gamers run into on an online basis, on a regular basis online, and you see exactly that they don't really hold back on any of the stuff that they throw at you, and this guy personifies that, at least from what I see here and there. Well,
so
what
the
do you think
sad
about
thing
that?
about the sad thing about him is he's too real.
Yeah.
And that's what many people have a problem with. Like, so the people who say that he's too over the top and too, not real, are grossly naive. This person, this archetype of a character exists in everyday life. It's any man with power. That's what that is. It's a man who thinks he's got so much power that he can do no wrong. One thing that many people have a problem with SAO, I found, is it pulls no punches at weird times. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a bit where he forces himself onto Asuna in the game, and
Right.
you're sitting there so uncomfortable because you're just like, Kirito's down for the count. He can't do anything. And you're just sitting there going, what the hell is, what do I
Right.
do with this information? And it's not the last time this happens. A similar thing happens in Sword Art Online season 3, which I'm not going to spoil, but there's a similar scene
Mm.
where it just makes you uncomfortable and you
Mm.
can't help it. It makes you feel this, oh, but there's also the argument to be said that that makes it better when the hero does come out on top and stops it before anything happens and
Right.
turns around and goes, you know what? I'm powerful and I can beat you. And he turns around and does exactly that.
That,
And
yeah.
yeah, that's exactly what happens. But it almost doesn't with him because there's a confrontation in the parking lot where it's real life, and Kirito's suddenly faced with this real life adult with a knife turning around and saying, I'm going to kill you for what you did because I can. And it's like,
Right.
what the hell? And people say, oh, that's stupid. That wouldn't happen. It's like, really?
No, that
You
actually
really
would,
think
dude.
that wouldn't happen? Of course it would.
Well, yeah.
Ah, it's so crazy, and he is a great villain, but I don't even love to hate him. I just hate him like so much.
No, I get you on that front for sure, dude. No, in this is what makes him like a really big, like a really good bad guy for the most part, is that yeah, you do like really hate this guy after a while. And yeah, you even like hit the nail on the head when you said that there's one scene again that makes you super uncomfortable, and it does seem like a very hopeless situation. You're just like, holy crap, this is actually going to happen. Am I actually going to see this happen before me and whatnot? What? And again, yeah, it's about the hero rising to the occasion and everything, and actually doing something about it and stopping it and whatnot. But again, yeah, for all intents and purposes, yeah, with all of our main characters and whatnot, with Kirito and Asuna, again, they've been voted as like best couple in anime like countless times by so many people here and there too. And again, we can get all bogged down here and there too about the craziness of the big bad here and there, but we gotta stress this, you guys. Sword Art Online is a love story, a big one here and there too, between Kirito and Asuna. And again, Sean's showing his awesome merch and all of the good stuff here and there too. But yeah, what do you think about the love between Kirito and Asuna and how it unfolds in the story before we kind of dive into the plot really quick?
Right. So, just quickly. So the thing is, he first experiences love with a character called Sachi, who loses her life, and people say, "Oh, he didn't really experience love with her," and yeah, that argument can be made. But he definitely felt something towards her,
I think
and
so too.
whether it was an idea that he wanted to save her or something like that, it becomes apparent that she had more of an impact on him than he wants to realize. Because in the episode straight after, when he's saving Silica in the forest, when he defeats the enemies, the first thing you see is his eyes, and they are dead. They are dead eyes, and he's not feeling anything towards anyone. In that episode, he develops feelings towards Silica of like a brother sister relationship, and it's like he's slowly building this rapport with people. He's building feelings almost with people. And the main one who helps him with that is Asuna. Like, not even intending to. That's not her intent. They're just, they
Right.
get along really well. But it happens with them to the point where it's just pure. It's love. When they look at each other, it's suddenly like it makes sense,
No, exactly, yeah.
and that's the kind of thing that people long for in relationships, is when you just look at each other, you're looking at, I don't know, your best friend or something, and suddenly the world falls into place and everything makes sense. And anytime you see them on screen together, that is exactly how it is with them.
Absolutely, 100%. And with that, let's actually get into the plot really quick as we're definitely gonna be talking about a lot of their story here and there too as we see a lot of this unfold. But yeah, as we had covered in the beginning, the plot starts off again with them seeing the debut of a new game out in the world, Sword Art Online, and so many people signing up for it and creating profiles and getting into the game and whatnot. And again, as Kayaba mentions to all the players that yeah, you have to beat these 100 floors here and there too, or else you're gonna be locked in here forever. And if you die in game, yeah, you're gonna get killed in real life. So with the advent of all of this virtual reality technology and trying to have them move to hospitals here and there too, so that they can actually be properly cared for when the news finally breaks that, oh shit, we're locked inside this game and it's not just going to take one day to beat, it's going to take a very long time to figure out the complexities of this game because it's not just like some like very like easy game that you can actually get through in a day, but rather you have to form guilds, you have to form teams, you have to figure out a lot of different stuff that's in the game. And again, it's not something that you can just beat like really quick, but they try to log off, or at least Kirito does at first, and he notices that the log off option just isn't there. So again, as he's going through a lot of the different episodes here and there too, you see like a kind of a different like scenario where you don't go like with the characters one floor by one, where there's 100 episodes for 100 floors, but rather they do skip around here and there too, and they kind of cover the main parts of the story as they're going through the entirety of the actual game itself. So one episode you might see them on floor 1 to start, but then it'll jump ahead to like floor 27 or something like that, and they'll just kind of keep going there. Again, I was only talking about the actual parts to that. And again, in game, Kirito, he's a step ahead of everybody else too, especially because he was a beta tester and really a beater, only because like they kind of like figured out that he had these different ways here and there about the game here and there too beforehand. And again, like going into this entire universe, he discovers a lot of different characters and forms relationships, like you were saying even there beforehand, where he does start to like develop feelings here and there between a lot of the different characters and uh, see exactly what do you think about a lot of the different stuff that was going on with the guild that he first joins, but leading up to the Knights of the Blood Oath here and there too.
Right, so the first guild he joins is you've got the Moonlit Black Cats, and Kirito lies about his level basically to join them because he wants that feeling that they've got all together of
Right.
that real sense of community. And that's all he wants. He wants that sense of community. He's sick of being solo constantly and they're being so welcoming to him. He's just like, okay, well, I don't want to brag, so I'll just say I'm a lower level and maybe they'll, whatever. And they end up having him join them. And it all seems to be going okay. And he's looking at, okay, maybe I'll leave soon and go back to the front lines, which is where I'm normally. But then they come across a trap room where they can't teleport out and they all die except for Kirito, who's strong enough to get out of it. But he watches these friends he's made die, and it hits him that it's his fault. And even up to like the final battle with where him and Asuna are going to like the last battle of the SAO structure and the end of the first half,
Right.
you feel that he's still got that about him where he's still got that hanging over him, despite friends he makes like Klein and Aegil, who's like the most badass, by the way,
Right. Yeah.
and Silica and Lisbeth. Like, despite these amazing friends he's made throughout the game, it doesn't matter because he's still got that hanging over him. And the thing that changes that is Asuna. Like, that's what links him to the very game code itself, is his relationship with Asuna. And we see this in a blink and you'll miss it moment
Right.
when, again, hashtag spoiler alert, he gets stabbed by Heathcliff. And as his health bar's going, he sees an image of Sachi, like almost tinted red. And then he hears Asuna saying something along the lines of "Don't give up, Kirito." And then he opens his eyes, and Sachi's face is replaced with Asuna, and suddenly he beats the game. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my god,
Let's
he's let
freaking
it
go.
go.
Yeah.
And it's exactly what is the point of the whole SAO thing is he's learned to embrace what he's come across, you know? And there's just so much to it. There's so many layers because the whole thing about the show is it's all about what Sword Art Online represents, you know?
Hmm.
And the answer is just so much. you need I mean
Absolutely.
you're gonna have to like watch it or read the source material to understand it. If you want more about the individual like flaws and how they beat the bosses and whatever, you might want to read the more AU thing. Also written by the same author, by the way, which is the Sword Art Online Progressive series.
Nice.
Highly recommend that because it goes more into Kirito and Asuna's relationship and more into as well beating the game, which is fascinating.
Absolutely. No, 100%. And even like going into their relationship a little bit further here in the two, we see a lot of the love between them start to blossom here and there too, even after like the fight with like Heathcliff and everything that's going on and whatnot. You see him come across like different things here and there too, like the rarest of rare ingredients or something, and he says to her that like he knows that he's got that she's got her cooking skills all maxed out and whatnot, and they make a like a very nice dinner or something like that. But eventually, hashtag spoiler alert. They do get married in game, which is amazing, and they do retreat to a just nice quiet log cabin on like the 22nd floor and stuff. And you actually do get to see this play out in the show, like to like kind of give you guys a little bit of context. And that most animes that you'll see here and there in a lot of different shows, you get 25 episodes of kind of little things that might happen between the characters, and then maybe like at episode 24, 25 or something, like at the very end of the show, you might get a kiss or you might get a profession of love, and then the show is over, it's done, and you're just like, well, what happens from here on out and stuff. But in this show, it's much different. You get to see that play out, but you get to see that happen in the middle of the show, and then with them getting married and all of the good stuff and whatnot, and actually spending some time together as a couple, well, as a married couple, really. But I just think that that's so like unique to this anime here and there too, to even like kind of go for that, because the usual formula that you've seen in like so many shows is that that love doesn't like come up to play here in the two until like the very end of the show. But what do you think about that?
Yeah, so I definitely agree. There is a lot more in this show in terms of like building a healthy relationship than there might be in some other shows that have relationships. There's often with animes and indeed most TV shows in general, they often have a will they won't they
Right.
aspect, and the
Yeah.
will they won't they aspect in this lasts for maybe 2 episodes when you got the murder in the safe zone plot, which is so brief. It's like, okay, oh yeah, that one. Oh, okay. And then, but straight after that, it's like, nope, they're straight up together. And like, to the point where like he meets Lisbeth basically almost straight away, and she goes, oh, you guys are together. You guys are in love. Right. And even though they don't realize it, no, they're straight up. They are.
Yeah.
That's it. Of course they are. Because there's no other person like either of them could be with. Of course they're going to end up together. Like another show I love called We Never Learn does the whole will they won't they, um and it works for that because it's a rom-com, and he's got three potential love interests, and you have someone you want him to end up with.
Right.
With this one, it's like, of course he's going to end up with Asuna. He can't
Mm-hmm.
not. Like they are a perfect mirror for each other. While he's like living in the game, she's living in real life, and that's what's breaking both of them down. And together, they embrace both, and they're just perfect. They are a power couple. They have a child together, which is a
Let's freaking
very
go, dude.
beautiful plot point. In Yui really brings to light Asuna's um way of thinking, because there's a whole moment where Yui's fading away and Kirito saves her, and it's like, okay. But before that, when Yui's saying goodbye to them both as their freaking adopted daughter,
Mm-hmm.
she's saying goodbye to them both, and Asuna literally says the words, and it's not only subtitled, but it's also the same in the English dub, which is, I can't be happy without you.
Right.
And that's like a whole other level of oh, that's what's going on with Asuna right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she wanted that perfect family unit to the point where when she got it, she didn't want to let go.
Right.
And when she had to let go, that was it, because that was the real life she was looking for. And
Mm-hmm.
once it was taken away, she didn't know how to function.
Right.
And then they made Yui's heart into the necklace, and that was okay because she had her still with her. It's like, oh, it's there was so many layers to that. And it just
Right.
proved that both her and Kirito have these, you know, well, issues in their own lives that when they're together kind of just filter away. It doesn't matter anymore because they're together. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, and it really like is a testament to the show with the way it deals with relationships and the complexities here and there too of a lot of different like problems that people might have in their own personal lives, but even then they're still finding ways to kind of mature and to solve those problems here and there together here and there and as they go through the rest of the game and whatnot. Um which unfortunately does take a crazy turn here in the two towards the very middle of the show as we find out that okay our heroes are going up to floor 75 but then we found out that Heathcliff who is the leader of the Knights of Blood Oath guilds is actually the architect behind the entire Sword Online game and that he's actually Kayaba and they have a secondary duel. There was the first one here in the two as to whether or not Kirito was going to be joining the guild, but then the second duel that they have was actually, hey, you know what? I know we're in floor 75 and whatnot, but if you beat me right here and now, everybody gets to just go home pretty much, and the game is over. So he ends up, well, without like going over the entirety of the battle or something like that, to mildly spoil it for you, they do get out, but not everybody gets out. There's about 300 people that still remain inside the virtual realm, if you will, including Asuna. Now Kirito wakes up from his like experience here in the two, and he's able to kind of go into a little bit of rehabilitation stuff because, well, let's face it, if you don't use your arms and legs for a couple of years, you probably are gonna have to be rehabilitated here and there too. Um, but then we discover that there's something going on in the background here and there too. Another game is still kind of online here in the two, and that's Alfheim Online, and that's something that Suga is playing. Well, it's his cousin, is what we mentioned in the characters. And she's playing this game, but at the same time, Kirito discovers Asuna's body, and she's still plugged into the virtual world here in the two at the hospital. And we find out that there's this other character over here, this big bad Sugo, this
asshole
asshole,
McGee.
yeah, who apparently is again yeah trying to like develop some sort of mind control and also try to like militarize it and all of the crazy stuff, but he's trying to make Asuna his woman both in real life and also in game and all this other crazy stuff that's going down.
I can't stress this enough. He's trying to make a 17-year-old girl his wife.
Right. I mean,
It's screwed up.
screwed up beyond belief, like for real. And again, the fact that this is all against her will, this is all like just being forced upon her specifically and all this other crazy stuff. It's so weird to even think about, but we find out, or Kirito finds out that she's still trapped in the game, but he finds out that she's taken on a little bit of a different form. I think he like gets a picture from one of his friends. You have to like refresh my memory exactly who.
It's Agil. Agil helps him out, yeah.
Egil, yeah. So he like finds him here and there in a bar and presents a picture to him, basically showing him that Asuna is essentially still in the virtual realm, but she's taken on a little bit of a different form as to like a fairy form. And that's when Kirito discovers that she's actually in Alfheim Online and isn't a part of that game. So he takes it upon himself to actually log back on into the virtual realm, even though that probably would give me like post-traumatic stress disorder or something like that, like just going through the first experience. But he's brave enough to go back in and save her from the second game and whatnot, and that's where the story picks up. What do you think
So
about that?
the thing with him going back into the world is, as I've already stressed before, is he's linked to the virtual world in the same way that Asuna's linked to the real world. And when he comes back to the real world, there is no real world without Asuna, to the point where the first thing he does when he wakes up in his hospital bed isn't like some anime where he'd be like surrounded by family or first thing he does is get up and try and look for Asuna,
Right.
even though he can barely walk. That's the first thing he does because he can't function without her in his world.
Right.
So as soon as he finds out there's a chance to be with her, he straight up doesn't even ask questions and goes into it, even though it might be dangerous. He doesn't even like, because there's the thing with Alpine Online is there's a new headset which is meant basically like Nerve Gear point oh, which is like it doesn't trap you, basically. It doesn't have that ability. It has like safety procedures supposedly in it.
Right.
He doesn't even go out and buy a new one. He just uses
It
his
just
old Nerve Gear rig,
yeah.
and it's just like, nope, slap it back on because he needs to be with her.
Yeah.
And there's a beautiful love story in that. It really is just so
Absolutely.
much to it.
100%. And as we were mentioning in our characters here and there too, with Sukuga, who we discover, or he discovers, is Lifa, actually in Alfheim Online, is that he forms a bond with her early in game, and they kind of become friends like right off the bat. And as he's kind of discovering a little bit about the world, even with his his cute way of trying to figure out exactly how to fly in game as a fairy here and there too, with his fairy form and whatnot. They still form this friendship here and there and kind of proceeds a little bit further. And then he finds out that, okay, he can't really like find her, at least at first, but there's this big world tree that apparently has this dungeon that nobody has been able to beat so far. And they've come close to like climbing the tree and whatnot and getting up to the top. But usually whenever somebody gets there, they either like can't fly high enough, like the character's gonna drop, or some people have even reported that they discovered a barrier up top to where you can't even progress even past that point, which makes him believe that, okay, well, yeah, she's probably past that point way up at the top, and that is my mission now. I got to go way up top over there. So pretty pretty nuts, isn't it?
Yeah, so he gets given a picture of her in like almost like a bird's nest. So he naturally thinks, got to go to the world tree. And he gets told by Leafa, the world tree is impossible to defeat. You can't do it. You can't even do it like with people. It's impossible. The
Right.
only people who've like got close to the top were people who like stood on each other's shoulders and then tried flying. And that's why the barrier was put in place, because Suko was furious and he put that in place to stop people even trying it. And when Kirito finally infiltrates the dungeon, he's told by Yui, who he was able to bring to life in the new world. He's told by her that the dungeon was made to be impossible, and he's just like, "What the hell?" But because of some plot, he's given this card, which is very helpful and helps him get to the next bit. But it's like, yeah, without that, he would have been doomed completely.
No, I mean it literally just like fell from the sky. You watch the show back and whatnot, and this thing like literally drops from the sky right into his hands and stuff. And I'm like, okay, all right, this is some kind of plot is happening in the background or something like that, or another character is kind of assisting him in some way here and there too to scale this massive impossible task. Which hashtag spoiler alert from here on out, but at the same time he does, and he finally gets up there. And all the while this is happening, we do see flashes here and there of Asuna's perspective as she's being tortured, like literally tortured by this guy, who has taken on a persona of Oberon, I think, as like the fairy
Yeah, Prince
king.
Oberon, the Fairy King, which is weird. Yeah.
Yeah, but she even like gets out of her cage and discovers a lot of the machines in the plot to actually institute this mind control type of thing over there. And it's just absolutely insane to even think about. But she discovers this and she tries to log off, but unfortunately, she gets caught like at the very like the very moment where she's about to log off. She gets caught and essentially is put into a situation where she will never be able to log off unless somebody like comes out and saves her. But yeah,
So the thing with that is she's not actually the whole reason she falters in the first place in front of this big computer where she's about to log off is because she's thinking, can I get everyone else out first? And
hmm
because she's looking around at all these, fake virtual brains wired up, and she's just like, how do I break them out? Then finds out she can't. Then finally, tries to hit the log out button, but because she spent too long, the minions of Suka have caught her, and it's like, oh, bugger. Then some weird minor tentacle porn starts happening, and it's like, oh, all right, this is a weird thing to throw in Sword Art Online, but it happens, and it's like, okay. Which I will say is the one bit in the entire series, I mean, from season 1 to now, where I'm just like, you didn't need to do it like that. Like,
No,
come
no, no.
on.
Okay, all right, all right.
Like,
But you
I
even
find that really stupid, but it is the one bit. I'm like, okay, fine.
yeah, no, that was the one bit too where I'm just kind of like, well, even like with Suga's like madness towards the very very end of the show here in the two as he's about to do some unspeakable things here and there to her. Yeah, that was also like the one bit where I'm just like, you really didn't need to do it that way. You could just come up with like some generic guards other than these dudes with the tentacles and stuff like that. It doesn't go that far, ladies and gentlemen. So for all of you
No,
guys
no,
who
no, no,
are
no. I should
looking
clarify.
to
I said
get
tentacle porn is a
into
joke. It was a
the
joke.
it
Oh
could lead
god.
you to believe that that does happen here and there too, but at the same time it doesn't. So for all of you guys who are watching this review video, it doesn't go that far, but at the same time, yeah, it gives you that visual at least in your mind, but at the same time, like even so, our hero Kirito gets up to the top floor and eventually runs into Oberon, who's yeah, okay, he's about to like
Evil.
get to the apex of his entire moment here and there too about actually like dealing with his entire madness and stuff, and we see that he's about to succeed in his plan here and there too. um but at the same time, Sean, what do you think about how Kirito stops him?
So I actually really love it because
I wanted to hear your
the
take on
fa-
this one, dude.
so he gets close to failing, so close to failing, but then we find out the last thing Kayaba did before Sword Art Online shut down was basically fry his brain in an attempt to basically upload himself to the internet, and there was like a 1% chance of that happening because that's, sci-fi basically.
Yeah,
But Kirito totally talks to the personality of Kayaba. It's like, no, he's done it. He literally did it.
yeah.
Like maybe not to the point where he wanted it to, but he definitely exists in the internet right now. It's like, okay. And he's basically informed of a failsafe, which of all people, Suko would not have thought to look for in a carbon copy of, Sword Art Online, which is the fact that the password for the main administrator for the game is Heathcliff, Kayaba's alter ego in Sword Art Online. It's
Right,
literally the password is his username. Why on earth would Suko ever look for that? Like, as far as he's aware, he's the egotistical, I'm the ruler of this world. I don't need to look for that stuff because I created it. When actual fact, no, you didn't, mate. He did. And now Kirito's got the power because he's just said, passcode Heathcliff. And suddenly he's like, oh, I'm all powerful now. I win. And it's like, yeah, awesome. Okay, that actually makes perfect sense.
dude,
Like,
absolutely.
some people might call it a cop out, but I'm like, no, that actually makes sense. Like, why would he ever look for that kind of, fail safe? Because he's an egotistical maniac. He thinks
Right.
he's won already.
No,
And
absolutely.
and plus Kayaba's dead, so the last thing he'd think is, oh, Kayaba's gonna, come back from the dead and inform my now nemesis how to beat me. It's not gonna happen.
No, for
But it
real.
does. And it's honestly really satisfying watching Kirito just beat this guy who's an evil maniac. And because he beats him twice, technically, in the show,
Yeah. No, for real.
like both in the virtual world and in the real world. The real world one intense,
Yes.
but the essence which it comes down to is Kirito saves the day, and yeah, it has this wholesome ending where, like, again, what for the final time, hashtag spoilers, but the show ends with basically all of them, including him and his sister, flying off to the new Aincrad, basically flying off to the sunset. So it's not a sunset; it's a new Aincrad,
Right. Yeah.
basically like, hey, who's ready for new beginnings? And it's like, yeah, that is so damn wholesome. And for a show to do that, any show, not just, an anime, but any show to have such a wholesome ending, there's a reason people consider this what's, known as an entry level anime.
Hmm.
Like, stuff like Death Note, Cowboy Bebop. An anime where you can just watch it without, watching any other anime and just think this is a good show,
Yes.
and that ending is part of the reason, the soundtrack's part of the reason, the characters, the plot, all of it is part of the reason why this show just works.
Absolutely, 100%. No, especially even like having you guys or having you mention about the songs and everything and about the production value. That's actually a good segue into the third and final section before we get to our conclusion, and that we're going to be talking about the production quality and soundtrack of this anime. And again, when the anime like made its debut and whatnot, guys, it looked fantastic. I mean, a lot of the stuff that was going off of with all the art and everything that was going into it, like the production team behind this, they did an absolutely fantastic job with the first season. And again, can't comment too much about the next seasons here and there too, but at the same time, everything in there, the colors, everything that's going on, the backgrounds, the world that they created, the game functions, the fight sequences, all the monsters, everything else too, even like the final battles here and there too, like all of that, it just works. It looks cool, and it really does a huge and amazing job of just driving home the entirety of the story and whatnot. And as far as the soundtrack is concerned, if you don't have Crossing Fields with Lisa on your regular like anime playlist or something like that, dude, like for real, like something's wrong with you. Not really, but at the same time, that is a huge favorite here in the two, along with Innocence, the other opening and everything too. But at the same time, the soundtrack, even throughout the anime here in the two, throughout the different emotional sequences here and there too, that a lot of the characters are going through, plus a lot of the fight sequences, totally done masterfully. Like you couldn't ask for a better soundtrack for this particular show. As to what I like thought. Like, what would you think about like production quality, art, and soundtrack, Sean?
So the correct me if I'm wrong, it's either the lead animator or the director of animation. It's the same dude who did the he directed Death Note, and it's like, oh my god, you it's
I
no,
think
sorry, ignore all of that because that's Attack on Titan.
it's a tech. No,
Um,
it's okay, dude. It's okay.
right, I'll start again. Yeah. So the thing about the production qualities, it is beautiful. You see the flying castle, you see all of that, and it's incredible. And that image of Aincrad, the floating castle, is so ingrained in anime viewers' imagery that it's just natural. And as you say, with the opening and closing themes, of obviously they're iconic in terms of anime themes. They're right up there with stuff like Dragon Ball Z. But
Right.
at the same time, you also have things like I can't think of battle music without thinking of that theme where you hear dun 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 dun. It's like, yeah, okay, that's battle music.
Right.
It's a boss music. It's like, yeah, okay, and that's the point, and it's so good, and it carries the plot so beautifully, and the music, the animation is just it reminds me of Rising of the Shield Hero in the sense that it's dramatic when it needs to be, it's
Right.
simple when it needs to be,
Mm-hmm.
and it makes all the right decisions with the animation. And sometimes you'll have like background characters with no faces, but at the same time, you'll also have them fully with faces. Like in the first episode, when we see the crowd of people listening to Kaiba's announcement of the fact that they're trapped, we see in the crowd Asuna, Lisbeth, Silica, before we even realize they are characters. We
Right.
see them in the crowd.
Yes. No,
And
dude.
the
Yeah.
the first one who breaks down and falls to her knees, it's Silica, and you
Isn't
only
that
get that on
crazy?
a rewatch, and it's just like the attention to detail is brilliant. Like everything, like whoever directed the animation of this, whoever did the proper animation, and like indeed like how the story plays out,
Right.
really loved the light novels and them some, because not only that but the art style of like the imagery in the light novels, because obviously that's just as with a lot of animes, the art style is so similar to the art style used in the pictures and the light novels and in the manga as well. And it's the love of it. You can clearly see that this show is made with love, you know.
Absolutely. 100%, my man. Yeah, no, for real. And yeah, as we get into our concluding remarks over here, guys, we're gonna give our kind of ratings and conclusions and kind of like last thoughts about the anime. And again, this show is something that I believe that everybody should put on their like must-watch anime list here and there too. Whether or not you buy it for your collection, you should actually, if you haven't seen the show already, you should put this on your must-watch list as far as like when you see it like either this month, next month, or sometime this summer. It should definitely be something that you should check out. And for me, my scoring system here and there is out of 5 personally. Sean, I know you got your own rating system here and there too that he's going to be debuting over here as well. But as far as my score for this anime, I give it a 4.6 out of 5. It is really, really good. And again, I believe, and since I'm putting this into my elite class here and there too, that you should definitely check this anime out as soon as you possibly should if you haven't already. And I know that a lot of people who watch a lot of these review videos probably have seen the show at some point in some capacity, but is it something that is worth a rewatch? I actually really do believe so. So if it's something that you may have watched back in like 2012 or 2015 or something like that here and there too, this is something that is worth a rewatch here and there too, in my mind at least. Sean, what are your thoughts?
So I agree. If you guys know anything about watching this, you know I'm a big fan of Sword Art Online. Um, so yeah, like if you're doing a star rating, I'd put it right up there. But this is the thing. So when I finally do this podcast, I'm going to do a simple rating, which is, was it worth it? And the fact with this one is hell yes. And
Hell
then
yes.
some. Because the thing is, so the conclusion for this one is, just with many epic animes, it doesn't feel the need to do OVAs because it doesn't need to, but at the same time, it has an extra edition. If you watch Crunchyroll, if you watch the Sword Art Online on Crunchyroll, there is
Mm-hmm.
an extra edition set just after season one and between season one and season two that I encourage people to watch because it's a nice little extra bit. But yeah, it's definitely it has an innocence to it, it has a beauty to it. It's a great entry level anime, and there's just something about it that stands the test of time. Like recently, you've got season four with War of the Underworld come out, and obviously only the first half of the season's aired. But so far, it's still just as epic as ever. It's still just as brilliant as ever. And it's, as I said, stands the test of time. It's beloved by so many people. You
Absolutely.
cannot go to any anime convention without seeing someone cosplaying as the characters. You can't do it because they're there. They're always there. Everyone and their dogs love Sword Art Online,
Oh my
and
god.
I'll definitely say it's worth it. Definitely.
100%. But guys, for all of you peoples who tuned into the show today, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, also leave me a like and a comment down below, and be sure to check out this guy at some point. We're gonna leave his socials again in the video description below, so make sure that you follow him on all the socials and check out his stuff over here. And yeah, guys, we'll be seeing you soon in the next video. Cheers, guys, and we'll see you soon. Okay, bye.